Our topic today, and perhaps always, is resources. Resources that are used to represent the inputs, efforts, and costs necessary to carry out an activity, a project task. We have these icons, and you will recognize the icons from the tool you usually use. But the subject of resources is to make a technical comparison, a technical evaluation. It is not a product sale. And we can say that of the 4 tools that are most interesting for planning and controlling projects and works, these 4 stand out with the most presence, where they are always in the media or recommended by consultancies. Microsoft's MS Project, Microsoft's Power Project, Oracle's Primavera, and Spidey Team's Spider Project. The interesting thing is that these 4 tools have resources, algorithms, programs that allow human resources, equipment, and service contracts to be included in the planning. MS Project has human resources, equipment, which you can register on a one-off basis or as a resource. Microsoft's Power Project also has human resources or equipment that you can also register on time. Primavera has the human resources and equipment in the same way as the Spider Project. So all tools are unanimous in saying that resources are necessary for the activity to be produced. When we move on to the second type of resource, because something cannot be produced just from people, the resource is material. We found the ability and availability to include materials in MS Project. Materials can even be allocated in the production time unit. The icon is the same, but understand that it is materials. Microsoft's Power Project also allows the registration and placement of materials in a separate table so that you understand that the activity needs people, equipment, and material to take place. Primavera Oracle also has the ability to include materials such as a table as elements to be added in the production of the activity. Likewise, of course, Spider Project also allows it. And the third element that was introduced in the MS Project in 2007 is the cost. It is the budget. It is money, which is clear that in addition to people, material, and the money that pays us and the material and equipment, there are also funds that can be assigned to activities, allocated to activities, to enable the production of the activity. MS Project includes this feature with the same icon and the same appearance, but understand that it has it. Microsoft's Power Project also allows the inclusion of financial values, and Oracle's Primavera does not. It seems that for this application, money is not an attribute. It is not an essential, necessary, possible resource for the production of the activity. The Spider Project, following all the others, also presents through an icon the possibility of registering funds and placing them within the activity. Now, an interesting thing, both the Power Project and the Spider Project allow money to be included as an expense, or money to be included in the project as a sponsorship resource, as an incoming financial contribution. So Power Project allows you to represent project expenses, but it also allows you to represent the money that comes in to honor those expenses. And Power Project is limited to money. The Spider Project allows you to also register, in addition to the consumption of materials, the supply of materials. From there, you can understand that 2 tools stand out in project management. Project management is not just about knowing how much is spent, in particular human resources, equipment and services, in particular materials or funds applied. Project management includes evaluating the input of resources to compare and study versus the output of these resources, these products. This limits us to working professionally with two applications. Unless you want to do very simplistic studies or very simplistic assessments. It is interesting to note that the Power Project, like the others that can present financial and economic truths, only works with one currency, with a cost component, only works with one cost structure, while the Spider Project, it can work with several components, several currencies, and various cost modeling, which makes us understand that for the purposes of more detailed studies and real contracts, real projects or larger projects, different currencies are possible to coexist, and therefore when managing resources, when modeling resources, being able to represent different currencies is an important thing, including when evaluating inflation, the depreciative loss of money, and everything in between. In particular, at Spade projects, we don't just have the truck resource, the tractor resource, the bricklayer resource, and the helper resource or food services contract for these personnel. We have other types of resources. Firstly, it is possible to group resources within the resource center in a professional and natural way, and not through table mechanisms. Another thing is that it is possible to have a group of resources that together mean tractor, truck, computer, mountain. Every set of these discrete resources forms a specific resource called a multiple resource. This set is composed to make it easy and possible to model activities that depend on joint and complete resource group to be able to exist. So there is progress in modeling for engineering and for projects that inject that a team is not called a team. It is called a team that has a reference to registered resources. Another thing we have is the profile. The type of resource that can be placed in the tool is the profile. I don't register. I don't allocate backhoes or trucks. I allocate skill, competence. If I have equipment or several pieces of equipment that do the same type of work in different productions, in different sizes, in different volumes, I say that the discrete resources have a common profile. And when I allocate the resource in the activity for production, I do not put the João resource or Maria resource. I put the competence resource. If at the time the computer is distributing resources, João is available, João will be put to work. If João is unavailable due to the type of competence, profile, or skill, Maria will be placed. So instead of taking care of each specific resource, I add the necessary competence, the necessary type of equipment, and the system will locate the one that meets the needs within the typical components. So Resource Center makes it easier to understand, classify, and control. Multiple resources allows me to set up a team that doesn't have a team name, has a team name, and has a defined structure of the resources that were registered. And it also allows me to place by competence. This is not just human resources and equipment. This is human resources and equipment, multiple team resources, resource profile and competencies and classification. It is also possible to register the productivity of each resource, where it is most productive, who is most productive, because the algorithm will make use of these options. Furthermore, you can inform how much the resource costs over the life of the project. The resource does not have a constant value. It may have a progressive value in relation to financial references or adjustments to employment contracts. And finally, it is possible that resources such as labor, services, and contracts can work outside normal hours through modeling of overtime, extra services, schedules whose financial value is different. When we talk about materials, we not only have the classification and registration of materials, inputs, materials that are not reusable. We also have the ability to group and classify materials for supplies in centers. This is very important. And another type of resource that appears for use in Spider Project is the material kit. The material kit is a group of materials in quantities and specific items that, once created, become a type of material resource that, when assigned, in the same way as the team, when assigned, brings with it all the items, and that item, that kit, the item of the kit, it will only be applied if all item-by-item materials are available at the moment. So I apply material, and they don't necessarily have to exist at the same time. I apply the material kit, I allocate it, but they all need to be available at the same time. So we not only have materials, we have a material register, and we have a material kit. Once again, in the same way as reusable resources, which are human resources and equipment, we have the value of the material. It can change, be altered over time. So we don't just have materials, we have materials and the possibility of classifying the costs of materials by scheduling them throughout the life of the project or beyond the life of the project, in the case of portfolio. And material kits, of course, follow the time-varying registration of the costs of the materials that make up the kit. And finally, remembering that there are multiple currencies, we have a cost center that naturally classifies costs as accounting, investment, operational, expenses, sponsorships, cost centers, and once again, remembering that money varies over time. So once again, the calendar appears here, as presented previously, saying that money can become more expensive over time. If money becomes more expensive over time, and the material depends on money, and the material has a natural increase in price, we have a real cascade effect, which happens in real projects. And it is necessary to professionally manage this entire set of information. The highlight here is that in addition to reusable human resources, we have multiple resources, resource and skills profiles and registrations. In addition to material, non-usable, non-reusable resources, we have material kits, material centers, and in addition to the currency, the budget to be allocated, we have several types of funds, several currencies, and we have a cost center applied. Of the two tools, then, Spider Project stands out as something professional. But what is your need? And then, based on the experience and practice that I have already seen over this time, you may need a tool to teach classes, and classes for junior professionals, or classes for engineering students, administration students. So for these classes, I think that you can use simpler, less fussy tools. You may want to stand out, be the only one on the market. So, to do this, you'll have to look for a tool that very few people know about, or that is only used in one place, possibly due to the imposition of the system or the government. Or, you may want to insist on using tools whose hegemony has already left their mark. Or you may want to use tools that are obligated by contracts. These contracts are justifiable or not. But my opinion is that you should use a tool that will get you the required result. Remembering that just because the tool has several features, it doesn't mean you have to use all the features. Coming back, I can use part of the features of the complete tool to teach classes. I may want to stand out by using elements of the tool that are essential for decision making. I may want to go against the tide by showing that it is possible to do better and not repeat what contracts bring out of obligation. And of course, I can use the fullness of the tool to allocate resources at a much more complete and more complex level. My analysis, and this is why I've been working on exactly this for a long time, is that Spider Project brings together all the needs for you to manage the allocation of resources and achieve results that bring real, precise, dynamic, and high-capacity models. of analysis. It is now up to you to choose the tool or propose a change of tool with regard to resources that nourish the activities so that they can take place and bring real results within control planning. We are not talking about the resources that the management tool brings to you to analyze financial performance, analyze uncertainties and risks, analyze portfolio. We are talking here only about the resources that are assigned to activities to accurately and dynamically model what actually happens in a real project. It turns out real project